Following the smashing success of the Goosebumps book series, in 1995, R.L. Stine and Scholastic would release a brand new Goosebumps series. But unlike every other spin-off series to follow, this new series, Give Yourself Goosebumps, was an interactive, choose-your-own-adventure format, directly immersing readers into the terrifying tales. Hi, I'm Matt Barton, and if Goosebumps was a big part of your childhood like it was mine, or you're just a fan of the series, join me in taking a nostalgic look back at the inception, artwork and design, the books, merchandise, and other media appearances of the Give Yourself Goosebumps series. Without further ado, reader beware, you choose the scares. Here is my look back at R.L. Stine's Give Yourself Goosebumps. In the 3 years since the release of the very first Goosebumps book in 1992, Welcome to Dead House, the Goosebumps book series exploded in popularity, spawning 33 Goosebumps books with more to come, about one a month. In fact, the Goosebumps series became Scholastic's #1 best-selling kids series until the release of J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter. Thus, R.L. Stine, Parachute Press, and Scholastic decided to capitalize on the Goosebumps brand's success to release twice as many Goosebumps books per year. However, Stine and company didn't want to burn fans out on the Goosebumps stories, electing to change the format and introduce a brand new series, rather than simply release 2 per month in the Mainline series. Instead of reading about another unlucky kid stumbling into a haunted house or discovering a monster in the woods, what if the reader became the main character? That single idea completely changed the reading experience. In 1995, R.L. Stine and Scholastic launched the Give Yourself Goosebumps series, a spin-off series built around the classic and popular choose-your-own-adventure format. Rather than turning pages in a chronological straight line, readers were constantly making decisions. Every choice sent the reader to a different page, and every page could lead to a completely different storyline and fate. Some endings were good, most were not.
When I write a Give Yourself Goosebumps, I just take a pad and number from 1 to 100, and then just start writing short little stories with a punchline. So you say, do you want to jump in the river or do you want to go flying in an airplane? If you want to jump in the river, turn to page 10. Just fill in, just keep a chart. It was pretty easy. And then, page 10, you die. And then that's easy to write.
The series ran from 1995 through 2000, ultimately ending its run after 50 books. Of course, choose-your-own-adventure books were not a new invention. Children's publishing had already proven that readers loved interactive, sort of gamified storytelling. But no one had really combined that format with the fast-paced horror, cliffhangers, and dark humor that made Goosebumps such a hit. These books directly immersed the reader into the wacky, classic 90s terror. The books also encouraged something almost unheard of for children's novels at the time, reading them over and over again. Finishing the story once wasn't really finishing it at all, as most of the time, the final page wasn't the good ending. Every wrong turn, every bad choice, gave readers a reason to start from page 1 again. Many entries advertised more than 20 possible endings, and some special editions expanded the branching paths even further. That combination of horror, reread or replayability, and immersive reader participation helped Give Yourself Goosebumps carve out its own identity within the larger Goosebumps universe. And with every Goosebumps series following the original came a unique format for the artwork and design. Though the original Goosebumps series wasn't afraid to occasionally take the goofier route with its cover art depictions, cover artist Tim Jacobus typically kept a baseline creep factor with his covers. using twisting perspectives, loud colors that screamed 90s, and eerie and sometimes grotesque characters, while still maintaining a wacky vibe for the kids. The cover art for the first Give Yourself Goosebumps installment was also done by Tim Jacobus, but after the first piece, Scholastic elected to drop Jacobus from the project, fearing too heavy of a workload. In his place, Mark Nagata was hired to replicate the classic Jacobus art style for the new series. Nagata, born in 1964 in San Mateo, California, was very fond of Ultraman and kaiju toys. So much so that following his time doing the Give Yourself Goosebumps covers, he went on to create his own toy magazine and then toy company called Max Toy Company, named after his son, Max. For the company, Nagata used the traditional Japanese toy-making custom of hand-painting each toy, creating the artwork as well. Nagata's toys, including licensed and unlicensed characters, have been featured in museums and inspired a book about Nagata and his toy ventures. Nagata's own art style crept into the artwork here and there, even hiding skulls in the works as hidden Easter eggs. Nagata's works lasted from Book 2, Tick-Tock, You're Dead, to Book 24, Lost in Stink Eye Swamp. His works didn't end there, as Nagata illustrated the Goosebumps 1998 calendar and other miscellaneous projects. He cited the invention of computer illustration software as the reason for many cover artist painters like himself being put out of a job, which was unfortunately exactly the case with the Give Yourself Goosebumps books. Craig White was brought on to finish the artwork for the series, starting with Book 25, Shop Till You Drop, Dead. Craig White's digital style helped to lend the remaining Give Yourself Goosebumps books a more modern feel, including a redesigned cover style to fit better alongside the new Goosebumps Series 2000 releases. Yes, while the original 22 Give Yourself Goosebumps books utilized a cover design similar to that of the original Goosebumps series, with the same dripping goo and centered collectible image, though holographic to help separate the series, the Give Yourself Goosebumps books starting with Book 23 used a brand new, more modern, more science fiction inspired look to match that of the brand new Goosebumps series following the end of the original series. Goosebumps, Series 2000. The artwork and design matching that of the original series and then Series 2000 helped to show fans that yes, these books are just like the classic stories, but in this series, the reader was now the one directly involved in the horrors and haunts of their favorite series, Goosebumps. Now, without further ado, here are the 50 Give Yourself Goosebumps books.
The #1 best-selling author R.L. Stine wants to give you lots and lots of Goosebumps in 3 different book series. First, Goosebumps, where the terror began and the screams go on forever and ever. Then, Give Yourself Goosebumps, where you choose from 20 different scary endings. And don't forget, Goosebumps presents books based on the Goosebumps TV show with creepy color photos inside. From Parachute Press and Scholastic, available wherever books are sold. Goosebumps, they're so good, it's scary.
Give Yourself Goosebumps books were both similar to and completely different than the mainline popular Goosebumps series. This is because the reader acts as the main protagonist for each book, getting to choose different pathways to take in hopes to complete the story, alive. Interestingly, the books were more interactive than purely choosing where to go. Some options test if you're able to perform a certain task, and others require you to dress a certain way. Physically involving the reader rather than just purely allowing the reader to choose their adventure was a unique way for Stine to immerse the reader further into the story. Now, without further ado, let's preview the 50 Give Yourself Goosebumps books. The Choose Your Own Adventure series began with Book 1, Escape from the Carnival of Horrors, which interestingly chose to avoid the association with Horrorland, despite being part of the Goosebumps brand and featuring both a carnival and the word horror in the title, as well as having the Doom Slide ride in the carnival. In this book, the reader and friends sneak into the carnival after hours and are trapped inside by the villainous owner Big Al. Al forces you and your friends to test out the rides and attractions, including the Doom Slide, the Booger Bog, the Reptile Petting Zoo, depending on the reader's choices throughout the story. The reader can also attempt to survive the Snake Lady, can bring an evil ventriloquist dummy to life, or find monster blood and use it to make a great escape. Though the book does not use Slappy by name, it's clear through the language of the dummy from that Goosebumps book that it is in fact Slappy the evil dummy in the dummy tent. The story has many twists and turns, resulting in 23 bad endings, such as having the reader's head getting torn off, one ambiguous ending where some of the carnival freaks show up at the protagonist's house to say thank you for freeing them and then eat all the reader's food, and lastly, 2 good endings where the reader successfully escapes from the Carnival of Horrors. Of course, despite the head tearing, most of the deaths aren't really deaths and more implied since, of course, Stein and ghostwriters weren't allowed to actually kill the kids. Instead, the final text often reads as the end or game over, simply giving the impression that the reader didn't survive the storyline. The second book, TikTok, You're Dead, was the first to swap cover illustrators so Jacobus could focus entirely on the mainline Goosebumps series. In this book, the reader discovers a time machine with his brother in a museum. When Danny, the reader's brother, uses the time machine to travel to an unknown time period, the reader must choose the correct path to save him. The third book was Trapped in Batwing Hall, where the reader joins the horror club at their new school. When the club decides to do a scavenger hunt in Batwing Hall, the reader can choose to join the red team, where the whole team turns out to be monsters, and the reader must complete a scavenger hunt or be turned into a monster as well, or Team Blue, where the reader uncovers a cursed stone that turns them into a bat at night and must find a way to break the curse. The Deadly Experiments of Dr. Eek was the fourth book in the Give Yourself Goosebumps series, where the reader waits for his or her mother in the famous Dr. Eek skyscraper laboratory. After bumping into Eek, he requests the reader participate in his experiments, and the reader can choose to accept or deny his demands. Only, he might just be a little too demanding to accept no for an answer. One of the more interesting bad endings, which is depicted on the cover, is the monkeys involved in experiments taking over the lab, beginning to run tests on humans. Book 5 is Night in Werewolf Woods, where the reader's family stays at Woods World, a campsite deep in the woods. The reader overhears that werewolves are said to live in the woods, and he or she must find a box of pewter figurines to protect their family from the werewolves. Throughout the various storylines, werewolves aren't the reader's only problem. There are also fire ants, a lake monster, and a troll in the woods waiting to wreak havoc. From there, entries continue to get goofier, starting with Book 6, Beware of the Purple Peanut Butter. The rest are as follows. Book number 7, Under the Magician's Spell, The Curse of the Creeping Coffin, The Knight in Screaming Armor, Diary of a Mad Mummy, Deep in the Jungle of Doom, Welcome to the Wicked Wax Museum, Scream of the Evil Genie, The Creepy Creations of Professor Shock, Please Don't Feed the Vampire, Secret Agent Grandma, Little Comic Shop of Horrors, Attack of the Beastly Babysitter, Escape from Camp Run for Your Life, Toy Terror, Batteries Included, The Twisted Tale of Tiki Island, and Return to the Carnival of Horrors, a sequel to the first book in the series, Escape from the Carnival of Horrors. The following release, Book 23, Zapped in Space, was also illustrated by Nagata, but the cover design was altered to look more sci-fi-esque, leaving behind the holographic original series vibe. And as mentioned in the artwork and design section, Mark Nagata's final cover art for the Give Yourself Goosebumps series was for the very next book, Lost in Stink Eye Swamp. After this, Craig White would take over, using electronic art tools to match the more sci-fi inspired redesign of the series. The remaining main entries in the series include Book 25, Shop Till You Drop, Dead, Alone in Snakebite Canyon, Checkout Time at the Dead End Hotel, Night of 1,000 Claws, Invaders from the Big Screen, Your Plant Food, The Werewolf of Twisted Tree Lodge, It's Only a Nightmare, It Came from the Internet, Elevator to Nowhere, Hocus Pocus Horror, Ship of Ghouls, Escape from Horror House, Into the Twister of Terror, Scary Birthday to You, Zombie School, Danger Time, and Book 42, All Day Nightmare. There were also 4 special editions released in 1998, and an additional 4 in 1999, 8 total. A haunted inn, a looming waterfall, and a terrifying mystery. Can you survive your stay at the Dark Falls Inn? Free early access to my new book, Dark Falls, at darkfalls.org. That is, if you aren't too scared. Special Edition 1 was called Into the Jaws of Doom. In the story, the reader goes to a science museum with their class, where an evil sentient computer is discovered and claims the reader knows too much. The evil computer turns the museum into a huge death trap, and the reader must survive. Keeping in line with the tagline, which now replaced Reader Beware, You Choose the Scare, with The Ultimate Challenge, the story featured only one good ending and 38 bad endings. The book, longer than the other Give Yourself Goosebumps entries, employed even more gamified mechanics, using multiple floors, objects the reader must use for survival, and dice rolls to decide page turns. Special Edition 2 was called Return to Terror Tower, a direct sequel to the original series book, A Night in Terror Tower. In the story, the reader must help Eddie and Sue, the main characters from the original book, reclaim their rightful place on the throne from their uncle, an evil emperor. Using the map included in the book, the reader must battle a dragon, and, as the back of the book states, you'll have to use your head, or lose it to the executioner. The third special edition, Trapped in the Circus of Fear, included the reader joining the carnival. Quickly, the reader learns that the sideshow freaks were transformed by an evil ringmaster who wants to transform and add the reader to her freak collection. The reader must survive the Circus of Fear. One Night in Pain House was the next special edition and final special edition of 1998. In the story, the reader and friend Trevor spend Halloween in the town's haunted house, where a famous horror movie was filmed. Quickly, the reader and their friend discover the monsters, like a giant dog beast and so-called tongue thing, aren't fiction. They're real, and must be lucky enough to have picked the correct 3 items at the beginning of the story to use them to survive their night in Pain House. Curse of the Cave Creatures was Special Edition 5. In the story, the reader accidentally crushes a skull inside an Arizona cave, releasing an ancient cave spirit. From there, the reader either must survive the desert, where the cave spirit takes the form of different animals to attack the reader, or the reader must wield magic and solve puzzles to defeat the cave spirit. The 6th special edition was another sequel, Revenge of the Body Squeezers, a direct sequel to the 2-part Invasion of the Body Squeezers from Goosebumps Series 2000. In their revenge, blue body squeezers turn Jack from the first 2 books into a black orb and carry him off into the woods. They also set a countdown timer on what was called a squeeze bomb, and when that squeeze bomb goes off, all of LA's populace will be transformed into the Black Orbs. The reader must decide whether to save Jack or stop the bomb before the body squeezers complete their terrible plan for revenge. In Special Edition 7, Trick or Trapped, the reader is going trick-or-treating in a nice neighborhood. There's a mansion behind several houses that gives out the best candy, supposedly, so the reader can choose which house to go through to get to it. Red, blue, orange, yellow, or green, encountering a different danger in each one, and finally confronts the final boss of sorts in the looming mansion. Lastly, the 8th and final Give Yourself Goosebumps Special Edition is called Weekend at Poison Lake, and interestingly, doesn't actually let the reader choose their path throughout the book. Rather, the reader chooses a lucky number that is used to make the decisions. For instance, the lucky number will decide which of the distinct storylines that the reader will be involved in. The first storyline involves the reader swimming in Poison Lake, only to develop a stench that attracts animal attacks, and the reader has to find a way to remove the smell to survive. The second storyline involves the reader swimming in the lake, where it's revealed that aliens buried something radioactive, and the reader must get the antidote from them. In the third storyline, jewels were hidden in a lake following a bank heist, and the thieves made up the poison water story, so the reader hunts for the jewels and must survive the thieves and what is lurking below the water's surface. Lastly, the final storyline includes a moss man trying to force the reader to swim in the poisoned water, and the reader and their dog must escape from Poison Lake. Though the Give Yourself Goosebumps series ultimately ended in February of 2000 with All Day Nightmare, due to the ongoing legal dispute between R.L. Stine and Scholastic, which also resulted in the termination of the Goosebumps series 2000 books, there was one unreleased Give Yourself Goosebumps entry, also just like the series 2000 books, which saw 2 canceled entries, The Incredible Shrinking Fifth Grader and When the Snake Bites. The unreleased Give Yourself Goosebumps entry was never given a title, official or unofficial, but in 2017, Craig White released the cover art he had produced for the book before its ultimate cancellation. The book likely took place in Antarctica, with the reader having to survive the cold, and angry penguins in one of the storylines. Though the series was ultimately canceled due to the legal dispute, fans were lucky and delighted to have received 50 total Give Yourself Goosebumps books. One of the most interesting elements of the stories was when the books acknowledged the original Goosebumps series, having the Goosebumps books be canon in story. Occasionally, the books would also quiz the reader on elements of the Goosebumps books, which encouraged fans to read them all. The interactive, gamified stories were just another way for fans of the original series to directly immerse themselves into the books, to give themselves goosebumps. The Goosebumps series was at the heights of its popularity in the 90s.
No thanks, I'm allergic to monster blood. Sweet. Oh, well, that would make a lovely centerpiece. Gotta go.
Hi, everybody. I'm R.L. Stine, and I'm here with some members of my special family. Slappy, Cuddles, the Executioner, and Prince Koru.
This is the Fox Kids Nightmare News. Tomorrow your skin will crawl when we enter these gates, a ghoulcast from the newest Goosebumps Tale of Terror. One day at Horrorland, you get to ride the Coffin Cruise, howl in the haunted House of Mirrors, and meet the Horrorland horrors in the flesh, so to speak. So drag your bones out of bed tomorrow morning for our ghoulcast from Horrorland on Fox Kids. We'll be right back after these messages.
And she
to our show.
Most of the merchandise produced was based off of characters from the original series, aside from an alligator stapler based off the cover of the first Give Yourself Goosebumps book. And though the Give Yourself Goosebumps books often referenced other Goosebumps characters and stories, even other Give Yourself Goosebumps books, the Give Yourself Goosebumps titles and characters were not referenced or given any sequels for many years. Even in the Hall of Horrors series, the Zombie School book was not a sequel to Zombie School, only sharing a similar title, but not plot elements. The first time any of these characters were revived was roughly 2 decades later in the 2015 Goosebumps film starring Jack Black as R.L. Stine. In the film, many of the monsters from the Give Yourself Goosebumps books show up as background villains, including but not limited to Fifi the Vampire Dog, the Snake Lady, Professor Shock, and the Annihilator 3000. In Goosebumps the Game, the tie-in point-and-click adventure video game, several Give Yourself Goosebumps villains show up as well, including Crombie the Troll, Fifi, the Annihilator 3000, and the Purple Peanut Butter. In 2017, the town-building simulation mobile game Goosebumps Horror Town was released. The game featured characters across the many different Goosebumps series and included many characters from the Give Yourself Goosebumps stories, such as Professor Shock, the Evil Knight, the Annihilator 3000, Fifi, Spider, and the Sleep Master. The most recent Give Yourself Goosebumps character appearances or references came with Disney's 2023 Goosebumps straight-to-streaming adaptation. In fact, episode 7 of season 1 was literally called Give Yourself Goosebumps, though it didn't directly use any of the stories as inspiration for the episode. Rather, the kids were trapped inside of a cursed scrapbook and have to escape. In a way, they were trapped inside a Goosebumps story, just as a Give Yourself Goosebumps reader would be. Second, Fifi the Vampire Poodle was once again brought into live action in episode 9, Night of the Living Dummy Part 2, where Slappy brings Nathan Bratt's taxidermy dog back to life, where it develops a strange temperament and powers. Though the stories were never properly adapted into live action, and several ghostwriters have come forward stating that they helped write the books based off of outlines Stine produced, the prevalence of Give Yourself Goosebumps characters showing up in popular Goosebumps media showcases just how important the Choose Your Own Adventure series was for the Goosebumps brand and its fans. Lasting for an impressive 50-book run, the Give Yourself Goosebumps series was cancelled alongside the Mainline Series 2000 due to Stine's legal fallout with Scholastic. However, the cultural impact of Goosebumps was not to be understated. Goosebumps would return in different incarnations, time and time and time again. However, the Choose Your Own Adventure format would not. Though over time, Stine has been very vocally supportive of doing another Give Yourself Goosebumps style series.
And we're thinking about doing some new, everyone wants to Give Yourself Goosebumps books, and no one's publishing books like that anymore. It's hard to get them to do it.
In any case, Give Yourself Goosebumps interesting, interactive, gamified stories were just another way for fans of the original series to directly immerse themselves in the books. To give yourself goosebumps.